It is a Monday morning here in New York. We made it through the weekend. We are back here to talk about a ton of things. That is the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This right here is Nick Wright. Big show today. Kyler Murray might no longer be the top pick in the draft. What? The Celtics could be making the Bucks nervous. What? We start in OKC. Didn't make it that high. Really thought.
Didn't make it. You tried.
I tried. Hey, A for effort.
7:30, you'll have it.
Yeah. Blazers took down the Thunder in Game 4, 111-98 last night. C.J. McCollum, Damian Lillard, that dynamic backcourt combined for 51 points. On the other side, though, another rough game for Russell Westbrook. 14 points on 21 shots, just 1 point in the second half, the worst statistical half of his career. Thunder now on the brink of elimination, down 3-1. Here is Russ Westbrook after the loss.
Sometimes you have nights like that, and you know that happens sometimes, but it just wasn't good enough for us to get the win. So.
Yeah, Russell, Barry Trammell with the Oklahoma. You guys did a great job on Lillard in the first half. He didn't score until the last 75 seconds of the half. Were you pleased with the defense you played on him, and how did it change when he got going in the third quarter?
It's a good question. Not sure.
A little bit frustrated, a little frustration there from Russell Westbrook. CeCe, what do you make of Russ's inconsistent playoff performances?
Well, I think that we're to the time and place where Russ is in his career where maybe this is what we should expect. Maybe our expectations are wrong. Russ is a late bloomer, someone who came to basketball late. Basketball didn't come naturally to him. He had a growth spurt, didn't get highly recruited out of high school, went to UCLA, didn't have the type of media following him because there's no way when he was 20 years old, people thought that he would be a future MVP of the league. So that's one of the reasons why I call him a late bloomer. But in his rise to stardom in OKC, I don't think the organization and I don't think the coaching staff, like Russ is to the point, Russ is 30 years old. He's not a kid. Is he going to listen to anybody? Is he going to change his game? Is he going to change some of the things he does? I don't think so. So I think inconsistency is what we should expect from Russ. Now, there is no other guy in the league that's been an MVP that's as consistent as Russ. What's the reason for that? I don't know. But going on throughout the rest of his career, I would expect him to be inconsistent. I wouldn't expect him to get, oh, he's 30 now. He'll get 32. He'll get more consistent. He'll slow down. He'll play more within control. No. This, even though he did have the triple-double third season in a row, but look at some of the other numbers, not a great year for him with his free throw shooting, his field goal percentage, and he's not, even though he's an elite athlete, he's not an elite defender on a consistent basis. So for me, I'm going to have to expect this. This is the only superstar we have in the NBA that I can expect to be inconsistent throughout his career.
I think the last word you used, an important one, superstar. And the question, I guess, is at this point, is Russell Westbrook a superstar? Or is he in that tier of player that has good playoff games and bad playoff games, and you don't know what you're going to get? That's the tier Damian Lillard's in. That's the tier a lot of guys that we think are a tick below Russell Westbrook or have thought is the case. But Russ has played 96 career playoff games, 96, a lot of deep postseason runs. He's a 40% shooter in those games, 40%. We have our guy Deontay, who's on the staff, is a huge Russell Westbrook fan, said before the show, I thought it was interesting. He said 8 of 20 from Russ in a playoff game is what I expect. And 8 of 20 is exactly 40%. It probably is what you should expect. But that is not what your star players, your true superstar players, deliver. Russ has played well, really well in one game this series. Not shockingly, it's the one game this series that they've won. And at 30 years old, there is no way for Russ to adjust. There is no way for Russ to get markedly better unless he comes back from an offseason, and I don't see this happening, all of a sudden as an at least slightly above average three-point shooter. All he's been for his career, except for his MVP year, is a high-volume three-point shooter that should not be shooting that high volume of threes. In the NBA playoffs, he, Clyde Drexler, and Charles Barkley are the worst high-volume three-point shooters amongst good players that we've ever seen.
The problem being on that list with those other two guys at that point in their career, they were not the athletes that Russ was. Clyde Drexler, high flyer, played above the rim before Michael Jordan came. A slasher, scorer of the basketball. Barkley dominant on the offensive board. Inside post game, had a little set shot as a three-point. So the overall athleticism at this point in these guys' career, they didn't have it. So what I'm saying is Russ settles for that. Those other guys, they couldn't get to the hole anymore.
Right.
Russ can get to the hole anytime down the court, but he settles for those 3 points.
And it's just hard because Russ is an elite athlete, but he is no longer the best athlete in the league. He's no longer the most explosive guy in the league. If you're going to have his struggles with any type of range shooting, you do need to be Giannis in order to be able to consistently produce. Russ can't do that at this point, and it's disappointing. I know it's disappointing for him, and his inability to adjust accordingly is, I mean, I went from year 3 to now. If you look at how his team's been eliminated in the playoffs, it's a 4 for 20 night, a 7 for 21, a 15 of 34, an 11 of 28. I went every elimination game he's played in since his 3rd year in the league. And they all have one thing in common. He shoots a ton of shots at a low percentage.
Yep.
And that's how his team's season has ended year after year after year. His team's season didn't end last night, but it almost did. I mean, in 5 for 21, now you're down 3-1. It's going to take one of those 3-1 comebacks, incredibly rare in NBA
But if
history.
you're Russell Westbrook, you say, I'm averaging a triple-double, again, coming out of this regular season. I'm doing everything I can. I'm distributing, I'm shooting, I'm doing everything that's asked of me. What do you think the disconnect is between his success in the regular season and why he can't seem to put it together in the postseason?
The disconnect is in Russ's reality. He thinks he can just play at this type of pace, and he's not trying to get better. I don't think Russ is a savant for basketball knowledge. I don't think Russ is going out in the offseason and say, you know something, I'm going to sit down with the video staff here at OKC, and I'm going to take out the bad shots. Because scoring the basketball, if you want to be able to score the basketball, listen to Kevin Durant. You got to be able to get to your spot. You got to understand what defenses are doing. Russ doesn't read the defense. Russ is trying to go through the defense and will settle for a bad shot at any point in the game. So I'm glad you pointed out in those games that their season ended, his shot selection. So he will shoot you out of a game. Yeah. He will lose you a game. And now we're to the point where I think is some of the most disappointing thing that I see in Russ, his influence on Paul George, how they're going to do these press conferences after the game. Because for me, that's a classless act. It doesn't take any. And you're a star of the NBA. You're an MVP of the league. You're one of the faces of the NBA. After the game, that's why you're making $35 million. It's your job to sit down and answer questions from the media. And his influence on Paul George and what they did, I think, on Friday after the game, where next question, they refused to answer a local reporter's questions. To me, that's a bigger indictment than the poor shooting, not being able to shoot free throws, because it's an organization and it could be a problem for the NBA. We got a lot of younger players looking at Russ as an example, and he is not setting a great example. So if you want the big contract, you want the attention, you need to realize that part of your job, it's in your contract, is to do the media after the game.
On that specific point, I disagree with you, because it's in your contract you have to do the media. It is not in your contract you have to talk to every single person. There's one guy in the local media, Barry Trammell. He wrote about this if people want to learn more about it, that Russ does not talk to and has not talked to for 2 years. The columnist knows it. Barry knows it. Everyone knows it. Now, I guess it's his prerogative to keep asking questions, but if Russ was both teams played hard to everyone, then I would agree he's not fulfilling his obligation. I don't think he has an obligation to talk to that one person. I think for me, the much bigger concern is the fact that Russ, the stubbornness that is leading to him deciding, you know what, I'm not going to talk to that reporter forever for really reasons unknown, is the same stubbornness that is leading to his game not evolving, leading to him not progressing as the league has. As the league has become so, spacing and shooting has become so important, he is, I love him, but he's turning himself into a dinosaur, because his style, you asked what's the difference between the regular season and the postseason. Jenna, the only difference is in the postseason, you're only playing good teams. He's still going to average in this series damn near a triple-double. Like, the averaging a triple-double, he's going to be able to do. But the key word over the last decade in the NBA is not three-point shooting or pace or space. It is efficiency. And he has not ever mastered that. He has never understood the importance of that. KD left and went to Golden State, and he was already an efficient player, became one of the most efficient players we've ever seen.
So did James Harden. Same thing.
Russ stayed the exact same. And
Glad you mentioned that. Russ hadn't won a back-to-back playoff game since KD left. So there's some other things he can prove on, too, besides the interview. So,
hadn't won a road playoff game either.
To me, playing defense is one of the things you control. Your image as far as the media, that's one of the things you control, too. And Russ, as far as both of them, in my eyes, because I'm a fan of the game and being played the right way and done the right way. Because whoever that journalist is who's covering that team, and Russ is the face of that team, not the owner, not the general manager, not the coach, Russ is. And his overall treatment of them and the disrespect of them is totally uncalled for.
All right, time now for Put a Grade on It, sponsored by CarMax. So the Portland backcourt has dominated this series. CJ and Dame led the way for the Trailblazers, scoring a combined 51 in last night's Game 4 win. Nick, put a grade on their night.
Listen, Dame, as we alluded to, had a rough first half. It was excellent in that third quarter. CJ was spectacular throughout, including a huge sequence in the fourth. They went up 3-1. They got a huge road win. I give them an A. Like, they would have taken being up 3-1 without their big man every day of the week. I give them an A.
Yeah, and regardless if they play well or not, they do the press conference afterwards. So I'm going to give them a definite A. I hope they win the next game. I'm not looking forward to seeing more KC.
All right, that next
Not
game,
a good look.
Game 5 set for Tuesday night when the Blazers could close this out. Coming up, why is Kyler Murray no longer locked to go #1? That is next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We'll be right back. Welcome back. All right, we'll talk some Kyler Murray in a second, but first some highlights presented by Hilton. Nuggets and Spurs, Jamal Murray, the pass from Jokic, and slams it home.
Tremendous second half by the Denver Nuggets in this game. Jokic, who I'm hard on, was great throughout.
Very aggressive on the offensive end.
Yep.
Ooh, Magic Raptors, Aaron Gordon driving, looking for the big slam, but Serge Ibaka there to stop him.
Oh, this was nasty. This was picture perfect right here. Serge tied him up, met him right there. One of the best in-game dunkers that we have in the league.
Pacers, Celtics, Kyrie dribbling between the legs, hits that Young with the nice crossover for the jumper.
I know we're going to talk more about the Celtics later. I mean, finishing off the sweep, Gordon Hayward amazing in the fourth quarter of this game. Kyrie, though, there's no defense for that. You just hope he misses.
All right, more of the same. Miles Turner, this was the
Watch
big
out.
one. That was, man, dunking on Gordon Hayward like he's not even there. Tremendous.
But Gordon responded. I mean, this is the dunk of the playoffs so far.
Easily.
Gordon went up for the contest. I don't know what he thought was going to happen there, but it was probably smart. Taking a charge there could have killed him.
No, he's on the highlights, but he played his best game.
Yep.
20 points there, getting the Celtics through first round into round number 2.
All right, moving on to the NFL draft now. Remember when it was all about a lock that the Cardinals would take Kyler Murray with the first pick? Of course you do. It was rumored every day, everywhere. Well, according to reports, the Cardinals are no longer planning to draft Kyler with that top pick. They could trade it, or perhaps grab Ohio State defensive end Nick Bosa, or any number of other things. CC, would it be a mistake, though, to pass on Kyler?
Would it be a mistake to pass on the first 5'10" quarterback in the history that potentially can be a starter or be a first-round pick? No, I don't think it's a mistake because the one thing Nick pointed out, when you're talking about you are the first of to do something, and why did he ascend up the charts so fast anyway? To me, this is normal NFL draft stuff because when a guy finishes his college career, they don't have all the intel, but immediately it was like, because they have Kingsbury and because Kyler, that they met on a recruiting visit, that these two are definitely going to be together in Arizona. And then they pulled up the footage of Kingsbury, what he was talking about if he was in the NFL. And at that point, he wasn't thinking about being in the NFL. He was a college coach only thinking about that. And if he had the #1 pick, he said that he would select Kyler just because he knew him just a little bit. That, to me, is just a coach trying to look after a kid who they pass like ships in the night. They don't really have a relationship, but Cliff, it was an opportunity for him to say something good about a kid that people at that time thought was going to play baseball. So I wouldn't say it's a mistake to pass up on him because of his size.
Listen, I think that they should shop the pick, trade the pick, stick with Rosen. So, no, I don't think it'd be a mistake. I also think this report's nonsense. I also think they are going to take him. I think that there's last year, very similar situation. Seemingly out of nowhere, Baker became the overwhelming favorite. All signs reporting to that Cleveland was going to take Baker. And then about a week before the draft, there was a report that Cleveland is not interested in Baker Mayfield, that Cleveland liked Sam Darnold more around the time Sam Darnold sat on this set with us. This would be such a pump fake on Kyler. And keep in mind, Kyler's agent is the same person that is Cliff Kingsbury's agent. Keep in mind how many things the Cardinals have done seemingly for this specific scenario. Cliff Kingsbury was not the best candidate available for a head coach unless you thought you were going to take a quarterback that fit his specific skill set as a coach, and that's what you're going to do moving forward. They could have gotten Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator, not as their head coach, right? Like when he gets fired from Texas Tech, the best job he thought he had was USC offensive coordinator. So no, I don't think it would be a mistake, but I also don't think they're going to do it. I think this is, if anything, an attempt to juice up the trade market for Josh Rosen before the draft, because once the draft starts, if you take Kyler Murray number 1, the whole world knows you are moving on from Josh Rosen, and everybody's offer lessens at least a bit, at least in my eyes.
I feel like there are much better, more productive ways to juice up Josh Rosen's stock in the draft than to let him think for the last couple of weeks that they're going to go ahead and take a quarterback, that we're moving on from him. With all these teams in the draft, and I'm sort of learning it more having worked around you, CC, and learning from you also, Nick, usually these teams have an ulterior motive when they throw something out there. Like when the Giants talked about how they may not draft a quarterback at all. Maybe let it go so that they'll be one available at number 6. But what could it be for the Cardinals?
Well, for one, it doesn't make sense for them to make any type of indication they're going to select Kyler, or it doesn't make sense either for them to say anything derogatory about Josh Rosen. So this whole thing has been a bunch of smoke and mirrors, and that's what the draft is about. Arizona has shown interest in Kyler. The people in the NFL world, that's why all these mock drafts have him number 1. It's not because they have nothing better to do. Their intel is telling them, because most people that cover the league on a regular basis, it's important that they're right because their credibility is at stake. There's other people on TV writing stuff. They don't care about being right. But people covering the NFL, covering the draft, it becomes important that they're locked into this type of information. So I think Arizona does have a genuine interest in Kyler because I believe that Kingsbury promised the owner the same exciting type football that he coached in college, and he can't get that accomplished with Josh Rosen.
And on the right versus wrong thing, there's two different types of predictions people in the media or people covering the league make. One is about something that no one actually knows, meaning who will win this game or how this player will pan out. Everyone is making educated guesses on this. Who a team with the number 1 pick is going to select, that is something that could be definitive. You can have that piece of information. So people getting that wrong is very different than picking the Rams over the Patriots because one is an undetermined outcome. And the other note on Kyler that you mentioned, what are the old motives? Well, who says that any of this information about they're not going with Kyler has anything to do with the Cardinals or Kyler? This could be Nick Bosa's people trying to make it seem like he's so good he could go number 1. So if he's there at 2, that the Niners say, oh, my God, got to take him at 2, almost went number 1. So much of this is just misinformation, as C noted, or ulterior motives to try to help someone or something out that you're not putting out there. It is rare there's a Peyton Manning situation where it's everyone knows Andrew Luck definitively. I guess Peyton wasn't even definitive.
No, because of Ryan Leaf.
But where no question whatsoever this guy's going number 1 overall. We know it. There's not going to be a trade. Usually 72 hours before the draft, there's a little bit of this. I would be very surprised if they don't take Kyler. I don't think it'd be the wrong move not to take Kyler, but I'd be very surprised if they don't.
It has made for an interesting 2 years of draft lead-up. All right, coming up, could the Boston Celtics actually be the best team in the East? That's next on First Things First. Check out the PBA playoffs, round of 16, beginning tonight at 9 Eastern on FS1, also on the Fox Sports app. Time now for Say What? Klay Thompson finally snapped out of his playoff funk yesterday, going 12 of 20 from the field, dropping 32 points. After the game, Klay let us in on the secret to getting hot. Say what?
Whenever you feel like you have a bad game, I know you kind of try to, do something to get yourself going. Did you do anything the past couple days to get yourself going tonight?
Oh, man, I did a couple things. I didn't think I had bad games, but I didn't have any big games. I told Jonas yesterday, we went to the beach, played some volleyball. I'm like, I'm just going to go jump in the ocean. I just know that will reset my mind, and it worked. So I don't know if I'm going to jump up north because it's freezing, but something I'll definitely contemplate if I don't shoot the ball that well the rest of the year. But hopefully that doesn't happen.
Klay.
I mean, Klay was unbelievable yesterday. In a game, he was great. Just enjoying nice little Southern California skies.
So that's the first time I've heard of an NBA player, because I know Michael Jordan, man, used to play a lot of golf, man, during the playoffs. Klay traveling with his dog to Los Angeles?
Oh, that's interesting.
Interesting. It's a fact. The guy said me and the dog jumped into the ocean. Like, he's traveling. They're in Los Angeles. They weren't in Golden State.
I thought that was a Frisbee.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
No. What did he say? He was playing Frisbee in the sand with his... Never mind.
Okay.
I missed it.
Thank you.
Anyway,
no problem,
it's a
Jenna.
good point.
We're good.
It was either a pet or a girl he got by some other name.
Frisbee. Time for stories to start your morning, sponsored by Gillette Clear Gel. All right, let's stick with the Warriors. They took care of business in Game 4 last night. They beat the Clippers 113-105. Kevin Durant had 33 points to go along with the aforementioned Klay Thompson's 32. Golden State up 3-1 in the series now. Nick, business as usual for the Warriors?
Yeah, I mean, this was a game that because Klay was so great and Durant was spectacular as well, it didn't matter that Steph had an ice-cold shooting night, particularly in the first half. They get out. Now they're just one game away from doing what I think most people thought they would do, just take them a game longer, which is dispatch of the Clippers easily. Now, the Clippers had a late push. They had a second-half lead in this game.
Yes.
And the Warriors were able to have a flurry in the fourth. The Clippers never really able to get it within 7 late in the game. Very good win, given what Klay and KD were able to do.
To me, the story will probably be the headline, 2 Warriors scoring 30 points. But to me, it's been about the Warriors' defense. Regardless of what Patrick Beverley, Kevin Durant, the Warriors have woken up and are playing the best defense they've played all season. Problems for the rest of the NBA, just a matter of time before they finish off the Clippers.
I wonder how much of that has to do with the weight loss of Draymond Green, who's playing outstanding on that end, where he's really made his name.
All right, moving on. The Rockets and the Jazz series is going as predicted. Rockets won Game 3, 104-101. They take a 3-0 series lead. James Harden started 0 for 15, but ended up with 22 points. Nick, what'd you make of Harden's night?
I mean, he was really bad until the final half of the final quarter. Like, in the last few minutes of the game, he was good after starting 0 for 15, finished 3 of 5, including a couple gigantic three-pointers. But it is a missed opportunity for Utah. Not taking advantage when Harden was struggling, and then Donovan Mitchell. Houston had a total defensive breakdown, and Donovan on potential game-winning shot and game-tying shot, and Mitchell just missed it.
Any great player can have a bad shooting night. We see that. Some of our best players, we've seen that with Harden, we've seen that with Russ. But the real superstar, he bounced back in the fourth quarter. When they needed him the most, turned the ball over only one time, played the whole fourth quarter, 12 minutes, had 14 points. So the most impressive thing was after the game, he didn't know he was 0 for 15.
Yeah, he said it on the court.
He was shocked. Yeah. He was like, oh, really? But he still kept playing, finished them off strong.
All right, to the East now. The Raptors beat Orlando 107-85 behind 34 points from Kawhi Leonard. Toronto now leads the series 3-1. CeCe, could Kawhi lead the Raptors on a finals run?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We haven't had any eyes on Toronto, but of course, when he signed with Toronto, in the trade for basically one star for another star, we know Kawhi is a better player. We know his three-point shooting is significantly better, and we know that he's a better defender. So, yes, if there is a team under the radar, I would say is Toronto, led by Kawhi.
Toronto started these playoffs the way they've started off so many playoffs in their franchise history, with a bad, inexplicable loss. Since then, they have looked outstanding. They should be significant favorites in the next round over Philly. And then that should set up what would be, I think, an amazing Eastern Conference Finals. I think the Bucks are still the favorites out East, but if the Bucks don't do it, Toronto would be the team. They're as deep as anybody. They're really well coached, and Kawhi is playing as high of a level as anybody in basketball right now.
All right, finally, Game 4 between the Sixers and the Nets, and this one got feisty. Third quarter, Joel Embiid with the hard foul. Jared Dudley doesn't like it. A dust-up ensues. Multiple players end up in the stands. As a result, a lot of drama off the court for these two teams, making its way onto the court. At the end of it all, both Jared Dudley and Jimmy Butler would be ejected and fined for their roles in the fracas. Let's pick this up in the fourth. Sixers down 1. Embiid finds Mike Scott in the corner, not the regional manager, puts the Sixers up 2. Nets would have a shot to tie, but Jared Allen gets the ball stripped away from him. Sixers go on to win 112-108. They take a 3-1 series lead. Joel Embiid had 31 points, 16 boards, 7 assists in the game, and 2 great sound bites after the game.
When Jared Dudley got in your face in the third quarter, what did you make of the whole incident?
I mean, first of all, he's a nobody, so, and when, you know, opponents trying to do stuff like that, that's just to get us out of the game.
Feels good to be up 3-1, so we definitely don't want to be in a situation like the Warriors 2 years ago.
Joel.
I was kidding, man. I tried to say
The post-game press conferences have become as entertaining, at least when Joel Embiid is involved.
Is funny, man.
That was your line. What was
Embiid's just a funny cat. I didn't think he could top the Jared Dudley. He's a nobody, by the way. Got that in. And then he makes a 3-1 Warriors joke.
How impressive was Joel Embiid in this game?
Man, in a game we didn't think he was going to play in.
No one did.
In a game that he was a true game-time decision to come out and put up a playoff line 31-16-7 with 6 blocks that no one's put up since Kareem. I mean, he was great. And it wasn't a must-win game for Philly. They'd be okay going back home 2-2, but it's a win that essentially ends the series. He was the best player on both ends of the court, and he was doing it not at full strength. We know his wind is not totally beneath him. We know, as you pointed out, he's a little heavier than he would like to be, but he was unstoppable. Every time they dumped it down to him, he was getting the shot he wanted. Now, he wasn't finishing it every time, but he was unstoppable on both ends. The story of this game, after Ben Simmons, was the story without Joel Embiid in Game 3. Joel comes back, and he shows how good this team can be because the Nets played well. It's not like the Nets rolled over in this. The Nets really controlled this game. The Nets were the team that it felt throughout the game was in position to win. And then late in the game, you had that broken play where Embiid has the touch pass out to the corner for the biggest shot of the game. Embiid was spectacular at less than 100% in a game that sets them up perfectly to end this thing in 5.
Yeah, and they needed everything. They needed every block. They needed every assist, every rebound that he had. He makes the critical pass at the end of the game where a bad pass gets him up under the bucket and where he could have shot a bad shot.
Yep.
He could have gathered himself and tried to go over 2 people, but he finds Scott in the corner. And to me, Joel Embiid, it's so refreshing to see him. And not just in the game, because a lot of the experts before the game was like, oh, Philly's up 2-1, they shouldn't play him. Then he comes out. Well, Hooper's hoop. Like, so I understand him wanting to play because if they're able to win this game, because you said it wasn't a must-win situation, but you don't want to go back to Philadelphia tied 2-2.
Sure.
Because Brooklyn would have all the momentum, all the confidence, and with them being so undersized at the 5 position, at the center position, Joel Embiid should have these types of numbers. Now, with him being injured, with him being questionable before the games, that's what made this performance so spectacular. But there is no bigger mismatch in all the playoff matchups than Brooklyn and who they're going to put at center going against Joel Embiid, and he showed us everything. Finesse game, power game, shooting with either hand, finishing at the rim. Wasn't behind the three-point line as much as he had been earlier in the season, but the ability to be able to push through that nagging injury, very impressive.
But the reason, Nick, that we all thought that he could take a breather, maybe, and then come back, or even if they win that game, not play the next game, was because of the way Ben Simmons had been playing the last couple of games. Because Ben Simmons came out and was able to carry them, we said, all right, this is the Ben Simmons we thought we could get. Why do you think it is they did play Joel Embiid in the end?
Well, I think he wanted to play, and he was healthy enough to play. I thought they would be extra cautious with him, and that if it was any questionable at all, they would say, get back to full strength. See if we can win a game without you. Now, but we also didn't know Jimmy Butler was going to get kicked out. That was the other part of this where Embiid's second half was incredibly critical, is Butler gets kicked out midway through the third quarter, and now all of a sudden, what do you have offensively? A team that we've talked about is incredibly thin on their bench. Now Mike Scott is essentially a starter. Now you have nobody you trust on your bench to go to. You've got to play your 4 starters plus Mike Scott with Butler kicked out for most of the second half. So the Nets were very happy. The Nets would trade Jared Dudley for Jimmy Butler out of the game at any time, which is why it was so smart of Embiid, and he said it also to stay out of it. He said, I'm too important to my team to have any chance of getting kicked out of a game.
It should be noted Philadelphia up 3-1. Tobias Harris has been the second best player for the Sixers. He's been better than Jimmy Butler. He's been better than Ben Simmons. And with Joel Embiid coming back into the lineup, we don't talk about him, but, man, his outside shooting and him at 6'8", 6'9", man, he's a problem for other teams to be able to guard. So Philadelphia looked good this weekend.
Big win, big night for Joel Embiid. All right, let's move on to the Celtics now. Clean sweep over the Pacers as they won Game 4 on Sunday. 7 Celtics were in double figures, including Gordon Hayward, who led the way with 20 points. Celtics can now take a little breather as they'll likely face Milwaukee in the next round. Here is Gordon Hayward after finishing up round 1.
There's nothing worse than sitting there and not being able to play in the playoffs especially. And so to be able to be with my teammates, be a part of something like this where we got a chance to sweep the Pacers, and after everything that happened last year, and, you know, it makes it all worth it, no doubt, and it's just the beginning for us. So we still got a lot of work to do.
But it's exciting to know that when the pressure, quote unquote, gets high, or you know, you're asked to be challenged in a certain situation, that, you know, you have guys that can respond to that and respond pretty well. It's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be the way that you expect it to be individually. But as long as we stay together as a team, I think that whatever result it is, it's just more manageable when everyone's together than just apart. So I'm happy about that we're all just diving into it, you know, kind of having a blind faith in each other, and just go out there and just be great.
All right, CC, yes, the Celtics swept the Pacers, but none of these games were dominating wins for the Celtics. From what you saw over the last 4, do you think they could challenge the Bucks and go on a run?
Well, I think that they're playing some of their best basketball, and good matchup for them in the first round, giving them the Pacers without their star player in Victor Oladipo. But it gave them a chance to play as a team. And I do think that, and not because of Marcus Smart, I think that they had one player too many. And I think that this helped out their rotation, that their 7, 8 players can get consistent minutes. And as you can see, they responded with 7 guys scoring in double figures. And when you have that type of concentration as far as minutes, as far as the ball being distributed, and you know that Kyrie Irving, he's playing some of the best basketball that we've seen him play. He looks healthier. His legs look fresher. Kyrie Irving is trying to play some defense in the playoffs. So those are all signs. And if Marcus Smart was able to come back, I don't want to get it too polluted, but they're better with a tighter rotation. It just becomes hard to manage 10 guys, to get enough shots, get enough minutes, and make everyone feel good. That was one of the problems of the Celtics that they don't have now. And that with Marcus Smart, will he be back for this next series? Don't think so. So now the overall roster, man, they got a strong roster. But this is the first time, or one of the few times, we've seen them play well with Kyrie being in the lineup.
Listen, a sweep is impressive no matter who you do it against. It obviously gives you more time to rest. It removes some injury concern. It gives you extra time to drill down on your upcoming opponent. And there were parts of this sweep that have to be incredibly encouraging for Boston. Jason Tatum was really good, their most consistent player in this series. Gordon Hayward, the way the sweep ended with his excellent fourth quarter where he hit 3 after 3 after 3, all seemingly in critical spots because, as you mentioned, especially after game 1, Indiana was in position in any of these series. But that is a theme for Boston over the last couple years, over the last few years in the playoffs, seemingly against any series other than Cleveland, which is, if it's close late, trust us. Trust our coach, trust our infrastructure, trust our team to make the right play. But to answer your question, do I think that they can challenge Milwaukee? I do not. I think they should be incredibly proud of what they accomplished, beating the Pacers. It would have been a disaster if they had lost to the Pacers without Victor Oladipo, a team that's 16-23 since Oladipo went down. But Milwaukee is a great team that has been great all year long. Milwaukee will not miss the wide open threes the Pacers were missing throughout the series. Milwaukee will not have multiple quarters in the series where they make 2, 3, or 4 field goals as the Pacers did. So listen, if they challenge and even beat Milwaukee, then what everyone said about Boston before the year was correct, and I was wrong. Like, this is a team that is as well positioned as anybody to come out of the East. I think we're going to see who Milwaukee is and who Boston is in the next round. But they gave themselves the best chance to challenge Milwaukee by getting done with this series as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think I have to dispute you a little bit on that because let's just say Boston. Can they win one game in Milwaukee of the first 2 games?
I don't think so.
You don't think they can win? There's no way they can win?
Well, of course there's a way. I mean,
okay. Well, then it's the playoffs.
Okay,
like, there is no one-sided matchup in the second round of the playoffs, and we don't have all those yet. The Celtics, the first team to clinch. But as we have seen, where the road team has won 8 straight games in the playoffs, like, man, this is one of the most competitive playoffs that we've ever seen. Especially, we ain't even through the first round yet. So to eliminate a team from the second round, well, man, we don't know what's going to happen with injuries and everything. And I think that Boston has the type of depth that they can challenge Milwaukee. And it really comes to, do you believe they can win one of those games in Milwaukee? And I really do believe that they can. Boston, this team, as we know it, has struggled in the playoffs on the road. We know in back home in Boston, they got a tremendous home court advantage, and typically they play well there. So for me, can they win one on the road to Milwaukee? Yes. Is Milwaukee a better team? Yes, but there is no team out there. I just saw Golden State lose at home to the Clippers. So to think that Milwaukee has been that much of a class act over the rest of the NBA, I don't think so.
Do you think, though, that they're playing, after what you saw the last 4 games in this first round, a little bit closer to the preseason expectations?
Yes, defensively.
Changed.
Defensively, yes. They were outstanding defensively. I think Kyrie would tell you he needs to play better in the next round. He had one good game in the series, and it was a great game. He was tremendous in that 37-point performance, but that was the only game where he was over 50% from the field. The only game where he was, I think, over 20 points per game. I think they know that they need more. Al Horford had one of the worst offensive playoff games of his career last night or yesterday afternoon. Defensively, yes. I think Milwaukee's a totally different animal they're about to face.
When you judge Kyrie, you can't judge it just on the stat sheet. You got to judge it based on how he looks on the court. Look at his overall bounce in his game. Look at his distribution as far as assists, the turnover ratio. Look at his attentiveness to defense on the defensive end. And also, look at the press conference. The kid looks happy. He looks like a real leader, and he's saying the right things. So for me, as I'm evaluating everyone in the playoffs, especially the superstars, there's other things that I like to look at. And Kyrie, no, not on the stat sheet. After his best season in his NBA career. In the playoffs, though, he's got that little glimmer in his eye. He's got that smile. He's on the defensive end. You could see that he's putting the effort in. So I think this was a great series for him, coming off a lot of turmoil during the regular season as a leader, getting the Celtics to the second round.
All right, we've got a break there. Coming up, does OKC's playoff struggles prove Russell Westbrook is overrated? That's ahead on First Things First. Back here, First Things First. Look who's here. Sports Illustrated senior writer Cris Mannix joins us. Hey, Chris. Great to have you.
Good to be here.
Wish I would have discovered you instead of Sports Illustrated, then I could have got some of them hot predictions you had from last year. Lakers won't make the playoff. Whoa!
Hold on, because I'm sure, man, we're going to argue a bit over the next few hours. That was a great article you wrote on that boxing match this weekend.
Thank you.
For us, it was really, really good. I thought it was really interesting about Amir Khan quitting.
That wasn't really. Your article was good. Nick would just want to get out of the way, so just to let you know, I really don't like you, though.
It's like the soft touch. Here comes
absolutely. Yeah, that was nice.
Hey, man, I said something nice. That's
now
all. I checked that off. off the
All right,
piss.
let's talk some basketball.
Manic said he don't like your new hair either.
What?
The Lakers, not in the playoffs, but they are in the news. Still no head coach, still no team president, still no superstar free agent, though they can't take care of that till this summer. We're now learning that not all roles will be filled. According to reports, the Lakers have no plans to replace Magic Johnson. Magic is, however, expected to be a part of the free agent recruiting team this summer. Chris, what do you make of the Lakers front office plan this offseason?
I'm mystified by it because in the immediate aftermath of the Magic Johnson quitting, I gave Jeannie Buss a mulligan for it. You know, it's her first time as an owner. She brought in the big name. She continued a long-standing Laker tradition of only hiring people that used to work for or play for the Lakers. But she saw what happened with Magic Johnson there. And she's looking, or should be looking, across the hallway at the LA Clippers, who have one of the most fleshed out front offices in the league. A deep bench of guys, smart guys that have done the job at various levels before. I thought she would look at all that and go out there and take all that Laker money, the $180 million per year they make in TV revenue, the $3.7 billion they're worth, and go out there and throw it at Sam Presti, and throw it at R.C. Buford, and throw it at Masai Ujiri. Instead, they are just sticking with the norm. Now, if Rob Pelinka wound up being the guy, if you went through an interview process and you were like, you know what, Rob's drafted pretty well, I like him here, it seems like he's got a good plan in place, that's fine.
Right.
But
you have a search committee, you look top to bottom, you look for the absolute best, have a competition, and he wins it.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
But, you know, whether it's overtly or through back channels, I've heard nothing about them reaching out to some of these top guys, and I think that is a mistake and a catastrophic one.
Let me ask something real quick. Obviously, the way Magic quit, it was, you laugh so you don't cry. The whole thing was so absurd, right? But once you had a day to reflect on it, did you not think this could actually be a blessing for the Lakers? He could have given, this could be an opportunity for them to get something right they hadn't. That it could be the positive jolt they needed going into the offseason if they did those things you're talking about, right?
100%. I thought Magic Johnson gave them a gift, that he walked away, and he didn't walk away after decimating the franchise. The Lakers didn't make the playoffs, but it's not like they're in terrible shape out there. They've got cap space, they've got LeBron, they've got good young talent, and all those bad players, they come off the books this offseason.
They've got their own picks.
So it's fine. He didn't destroy the franchise, but it gave them an opportunity to see what works and what didn't. And I'm telling you, that Laker job is an appealing job for everybody. Look at what the Thunder are doing right now. Like, you're telling me that Sam Presti wouldn't consider taking that Laker job? Or how about somebody calls R.C. Buford in San Antonio and wonders, after 3 decades down there, if maybe he wants $15 million per year to run his own thing? Same thing with Masai. That these calls seemingly weren't made is just mind-boggling to me. It's like the definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Well, Mannix, the problem is that typically when I'm trying to make a decision, and if it's an important decision, I try to bring in people that might have information to be able to help me. And it's not easy to make these types of decisions. But if you keep bringing in the same people, because last year she probably went to either Magic to talk to before she hired them and or Kobe. Those are the Mitch Kupchak, Kurt Rambis, those are the only ones. West is working with the Clippers, so those are the only ones in Laker Nation that are really live. So she went to Magic. Magic was like, I could do a better job running this team. Kobe was like, yeah, won't you hire my agent? So to me, they've gone about this the same way they've gone about everything else, backwards. They should have went out and tried to get, because I said the Lakers, most storied history in the NBA, let's go out and make it about the best. You're in pro sports, you're at the highest level. Let's try to get the best person for that job. And based on your information, they haven't even tried to go down that road. And to me, that's a tremendous mistake, Nick.
You mentioned who's Jeannie Buss talking to. Mason in Ireland is a radio show in L.A. Mason does a television broadcaster there. John Ireland's the television voice of the Lakers. It's a connected afternoon show in L.A. Man, they said something last week that should terrify Laker fans. And that is Jeannie Buss's closest confidant and the person who she is leaning on the most in this part of the Lakers' history is Linda Rambis. Kurt Rambis's wife. And that is not an indictment on Linda. It is simply, what are the odds that the person most equipped is someone what's the odds the best person to take over the company is the son of the guy who built the company? What are the odds the person most equipped to help you with this search is the wife who you're friends with of a former Lakers coach, like former Lakers player? Really? That's the plan here? Lakers fans have to be holding out some hope that what has happened is just not being reported, that Colin has it right, that they have reached out to Masai or Presti, that they have someone in place, but their team is still in the playoffs. Because if that's not the case, then all the Lakers have going for them is LeBron. Then they just have to hope that LeBron can bring someone in, that LeBron can help Pelinka build the roster. Because if you don't get a real pro at this, then what are you doing? And the idea that none of these people that fit all the qualifications you're talking about would take $12 to $15 million a year
or more. Take a blank check and send it to them.
It doesn't matter. Ain't no salary cap.
Right, no. Exactly.
I think your point you made as far as the money that they're making off the court, the overall evaluation of the business, this should be a no-brainer. This is easy to do.
You said Laker fans are hoping that's not necessarily the case. I would say Lakers are hoping that's not necessarily the case. I wonder where you think LeBron fits into all this after really coming there in large part because Magic Johnson made a promise to him that this is the direction the team's going in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what LeBron thinks of all this, but he's got to be looking at that top of that organization and wondering, can I really trust in what's happening out there? And one of the bigger problems I think they have, if it is Rob Pelinka, I mean, I can't imagine they're trying to interview other candidates while trying to hire a coach. A GM should be the guy hiring the coach. But if it is Rob Pelinka, the next thing they would have to do is flesh out his staff. I mean, Lawrence Frank added like 50 people. He added my former colleague, Lee Jenkins, to that front office. Who is in that Laker front office? Where are the experienced executives that need to be around Rob Pelinka when he's making these types of decisions?
I'm coming out of this segment more stressed about the Lakers than going into the segment. Cris, great insight. Thank you as always. We'll see you a little bit later.
Lost a little patch of hair.
Coming up, did trading Odell solve the Giants' culture problem? The Giants GM seems to think so. That's next on First Things First.
Did you?
Back here, First Things First, we're going viral. Jimmy Butler and Jared Dudley were ejected Saturday for a scrum during the Sixers-Nets Game 4. And when the scuffle started to pour into the crowd, dad mode was activated. Check out this Father of the Year candidate scoop his son, get him out of harm's way.
Gotta go.
It's about that time.
Coming over here. Gotta go. That's smart. I also think these guys wouldn't have been ejected if this had happened at midcourt. I think that they got ejected in part because it spilt into the crowd.
Or if they had gone to the ground. The one thing is the crowd because of the overall danger. They missed the dad to the right, who was even closer to the fight. He got up immediately. He was gone. He's seen a fight ready to break out. So he got up immediately. When they went to the ground, that's going to cause a little extra. And then anytime because of what happened in the Palace in Detroit,
if you go into the crowd,
absolutely. Don't want that one again, Deontay.
100%. And so, because I thought it was the minimum contact necessary for players to get ejected. 2 pushes, no punches thrown. But because of where it happened, what had been going on in the series.
Right, but also now they have the new instigator, or if you escalate the fight. Yeah, so that's why they got thrown out.
All right. Back here, First Things First.
I know you know about being an instigator.
100%.
Every day, 6:30 to 9:30. When the Giants traded away Odell Beckham to the Browns last month, many questioned the direction GM Dave Gettleman was steering the team. That was compounded by the fact that the Giants are seemingly sticking with 38-year-old Eli Manning. Gettleman dropped a little insight on the Odell move in a recent interview, saying the team no longer has a culture problem. See, what's your reaction to Gettleman's comments?
I didn't like the comments. I don't think that it was right for OBJ for him to be able to say that. Even in this league, what happens is when you go to another team, whatever intel that team has on you, they typically don't discuss it. That's the reason why people for a long time, and even to this day, people say, well, Cris Carter, all he does is catch touchdowns. And the reason why is because Buddy Ryan, when he cut me, he didn't tell the real reason. He didn't tell the reason why I was available for waiver wire, and he just used the excuse, all he does is score a touchdown. Then eventually it called on because me, per touchdown, per reception, my ratio was very, very high, but it was actually the excuse for not giving the public information that he had on a player, something that's been common to sports since the beginning of sports. So Gettleman even talking about that Odell, and I don't believe this to be true, but thinking that Odell was part of the problem as far as the locker room and the culture with the Giants, that wasn't the right thing to do. And even if it was true, it wasn't the right thing for him to say. Now, I know in personally talking to the head coach and personally talking to a number of guys in the Giants locker room that this wouldn't be true. There were a lot of guys that looked up to him as a leader. Odell, one of his biggest problems, if you get outside of the emotional outburst, his biggest problem was the Giants would not let him practice at full speed. And he felt like he was wasting his time a lot there in the offseason. He didn't speak bad about Eli most of the time. Now, the Lil Wayne thing, he could have cleaned that up just a little bit, but he wasn't saying negative things about his teammate or Eli. So I don't like the way Gettleman positioned this, as if you could draw the conclusion that OBJ was part of the problem as far as the Giants compared to their lack of talent, their lack of playmakers, their lack of a pass rush, an offensive line that is atrocious.
Listen, as Bill James said, bad teams have a stunning habit of blaming their best players for their problems. And I'll take it further than you see. I don't think Gettleman was saying in this quote, OBJ was part of the culture problem. He made it seem like the culture problem was Odell Beckham Jr., unless we're going to say he was lumping this on Landon Collins, who nobody seemed to have issues with his leadership, with him as a teammate. It was just a contractual issue there. There's not a lot of other Giants that were prominent players that have been moved out since last season ended. Listen, Dave Gettleman is doing a lot of talking, a lot of media. He is putting himself out there repeatedly with a very sincere belief. Oh, I know how to do this better than everybody talking about this, and I'm going to show you. So we're going to get to find out. We're going to get to find out if he's right, that the problem with the Giants last year wasn't their 1,000-yard receiver. It wasn't what their 1,000-yard receiver brought to the table, but what he took off the table through this intangible, unable to define cultural issues. I don't believe that to be true. We've had a few of his teammates on this show talking about their relationship with him on and off the field, and I thought Pat Shurmur seemed to like it. Pat Shurmur seemed to really be trying to build a relationship with him over the course of the season, but Dave Gettleman clearly thought the player that he gave a contract extension to as one of his first moves,
who said we did not sign him to trade him,
was a huge cultural problem for the New York Giants.
So Dave Gettleman said a lot in all of this, but somehow over the course of the last couple months, in giving numerous interviews, more so than we've heard from a lot of other general managers at this point in the offseason, he's come to let us know that he wants to go with a 38-year-old quarterback, and his team is not rebuilding, even though we seem to think they are. What do you think Dave Gettleman's agenda is in all this, with the Odell comments, with the Eli comments? I mean, where are we with why he seems to find it necessary to explain himself constantly?
Now, for me, not like other people, I believe in him as a football person. I believe he's trying to position the New York Football Giants so that they can put a product on the field. Now, Gettleman, as long as he's been associated, he hadn't had this many sound bites. So to me, it's a little odd. It's a little unusual, but the Giants and their ownership, they haven't been speaking. So Gettleman, he's taken over that role. As he preps for the draft, are the Giants in a better position to be able to rebound and get into the playoffs? That, to me, is what he should be judged on. Can he restore that offensive line? Can he get them a pass rusher after trading Olivier Vernon? These are the things that he should be judged on. All these press conferences, because we're going to find out which quarterback he likes. We're going to find out through the draft. I believe with the 6th pick, he's going to take a defensive player, and they're going to skip on the quarterback until the 17th pick or try to trade up from the 17th pick. Those are the things that are really important. Who we traded away, all that stuff, it's not going to matter now. It's what type of product can he help the Giants put back on the field to get them into the playoffs.
And it should be noted, if they do take a quarterback at any point in the first round or any point high in the draft, that'll be the first time Dave Gettleman's done this. When he got to the Giants the first time, he inherited Eli Manning. When he got to the Carolina Panthers, he inherited Cam Newton.
Right.
One thing he's never done with the 7 Super Bowls he's been to that he talks about at length in this article, forgetting the fact that 4 of those he was a scout with the Bills, not one of the decision makers, but still, None of those times was he a part of the process that selected the quarterback that took those teams to that Super Bowl. He's going to have to be, whether he wants to be or not, the part of that process for the Giants either this year or next year, depending on what they do with Eli Manning. And just like we don't know, he doesn't know if that's something he excels at, because that's something he's never done. The quarterbacks he's been successful with were already with those franchises when he got there.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.